Hey everybody, my name is Liz Davidson and I am a Latin teacher at Parkview High School near Atlanta, Georgia. So I am a CI, a Comprehensible Inputs Latin teacher, and I am the sixth teacher in my department, which is really weird to think about. So this is my second year at Parkview. I had been a traditional Latin teacher before. I was traditionally trained, but I've kind of fallen down the CI rabbit hole and been having a really good time. So tonight, what I wanted to talk about is, well, we're all teaching digitally, as y'all know, which means that we're having to find new ways to make materials, new ways to entertain our students, frankly, and new ways to be able to do things like leave sub plans or maybe have asynchronous work, even if that just means you're not teaching live today. And for me, one of the big solutions to that has been to make a lot of videos. So I am not a great cinematographer, but I do have a YouTube channel. It's where I teach people how to play board games and I review board games. So I have a hobby that has just had me making videos, and I started to apply that more and more to Latin over the past year or so. And I've been having a good time with it. So I thought it might be fun to kind of share some of that with other people and see, if there's anything in what I'm doing that can work for somebody else. So I made a presentation somewhere. Here we go. I'll go over to my tab. All right, so slide time. So making compelling language videos. I don't know if my videos are actually compelling, but for the sake of this talk, we will pretend that they are. So the main thing that I've discovered is, and I mean, this is something that teachers complain about all the time, right? Oh, students, they're always on their phones. They always want to look at their phones. They want to watch videos. They want to watch TikTok. They want to, look at Instagram. And that is their reality. And I also spend a lot of time on social media and have definitely spent more time on TikTok than you really want to know if you want to continue to respect me as a professional. So, I also appreciate these things. And we've been thinking at Parkview, why not start to bend those aspects of what our students already like to do to help them learn Latin or, learn Spanish or French or any subject that you can think of. There's probably some sort of TikTok for that. So social media, it is entirely possible, if you are willing, to create Latin-friendly social media. So TikTok and Instagram are the main things that you'll want to use that your kids also use. So if you didn't know this, Facebook is for old people. And I've been told this many times in the last couple of years. And the kids also do not go on Twitter. So I use both of those social media platforms, probably more than I use TikTok or Instagram, but that's not what your kids like. And it's also not where you can store, things that are uniquely helpful for them to remember vocabulary, for example. So at Parkview, our Latin 1 team this year, this is like starting small, right? If you don't want to make some giant video, you can start small, because if your students can make a TikTok, you also are intelligent enough to figure out how to make a TikTok. I mean, they're smart too. I'm not saying that, but so actually Parkview has a TikTok. That is the address of it right there, but I'll just give you like a sample of what we're doing. I'm pretty sure am I sharing sound? I'm gonna make absolutely sure that I am really quick, because that would be embarrassing. It says share computer sound. I've been using lots of Google Meets because it's got better security at work. So we haven't made a ton of TikTok videos, and it's really better on a phone, but we've just been like making little TikToks and putting Latin words on them. So this one, for example, we got our principal to participate in.
Run.
And like your students see this and like maybe they think that you are stupid and roll their eyes at you, but they also completely remember how to say run in Latin because you embarrassed them enough with your adultness thinking that you were funny that they bought it. One thing I will warn you about with TikTok, however, is that I would not scroll through TikTok at work with my volume on, because TikTok does not censor and there are a lot of really inappropriate songs on there. So TikTok is something that we let our students know we have in case they already have the app on their phone. You can also pull TikTok videos and put them together and put them on YouTube if you want your students to see only what you have made. But TikTok is one of those things where you can make really neat little videos that students identify with. But I am going to warn you, a lot of content on TikTok is not safe for work, not safe for school. I have never scrolled through TikTok at school ever. But no, seriously, don't do it with kids around, not with your sound on. Instagram is more curated, of course, but if you want to put up memes or things to help them remember vocabulary, I like to do a lot of projects with my students where they take pictures of things around them to represent vocabulary words, and then use those in GimKits, which are like a neat little online quiz game. If you've not played that, you should absolutely look up GimKit. Or you can put them in other contexts like this, and students will be happy because it's images that they made. It's something they identify with. So even though they're going to laugh at you and make fun of how old you are, I think it's worth at least checking out social media, because if you see what they're seeing, and we'll get back to this later, if you want something to be compelling, look at what's already compelling to them. And then I actually make a lot of longer form videos for Latin. So, I think there are a lot of reasons why it's good to do this right now. I am very lucky in that I am the sixth teacher in my program, and I only really have 2 preps right now. I teach every day. I teach 4 sections of Latin 1, and I teach 1 section of Latin 2. So other people are what I used to be, which is the lone teacher who, you're doing like 4 preps, and it's really difficult. So, if you want to make a video for 1 class and give yourself a break, or have a library of things to show kids, it's really not a bad idea. For me, what this helps with is putting things on Google Classroom for students who missed class. So I don't like to post my whole class. Part of that is that it's kind of bloated because you're just hanging out and having your little seance of like, Mark, are you there? Give me a sign. You don't need all that to end up on your Google Classroom. And so it's better to have something tight. Like if a parent is like, my student needs to make up work, what can they do? You can be like, watch this video that I made. So I use videos a lot for that purpose. I basically do a read through of every story we do and put it, online for the students to access. And, I also hope that I'll make some stuff that I still like a year from now, so I can actually, get some more out of it. But there are 3 kinds of longer form videos that you don't have to have a lot of tech to do. So the first one I'm going to talk about is using Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic. This is the least dynamic kind of video that you can make because you're just doing a cast of your screen. But at the same time, it's also the easiest, because if you just want to hit record and talk and point at things on a PowerPoint or point at things on a text on your screen, this is the easiest way to get started. And, not everybody wants to experiment with the world of making videos right away, or they have to dip their toes in. Like I'm still trying to get up the nerve to learn how to use Adobe Premiere, and because I'm scared of this video editor. So it's okay. But Screencastify or Screencast-O-Matic is, our school bought us a subscription. If yours hasn't, I think it's like $50 for a year of Screencast-O-Matic. But what it does is it allows you to record pretty much any screen, and I'm fairly certain the sound from that screen. So you can do things like record something that you're playing on a tab on Google and talk over it. I use it. So this is like the most boring video I'll show you tonight, probably, to do these things called dictationes. So in our Latin classes, we're CI, so we have our students listen to a lot of the stuff that we say, and then try to write down the Latin that they hear. So this is an example of that I just made in Screencast-O-Matic. So like the sound is bad. I just made this on my planning period when I had like 2 seconds with kids not in the room.
Wait, Skippily. This is Dr. D, and I'm here to read your dictatio sentences to you today. So let's just go ahead and start with sententia prima, first sentence. Good place to start as any. So I'm going to read it 3 times. You do your best to write the sentence down, then correct yourself, and you can also write the translation, which I will provide.
So I'm not going to make you listen to that forever, but basically it's me reading off Latin sentences really slowly for the kids to try to write down. The benefit of having it in this format and having, this kind of video is that then you've read it, you've already done the reading. You could show the same video multiple times if you really wanted to. And I kind of think that work smart, not hard is good right now, because we're all so overloaded with so many things. And also sometimes, your voice just isn't up to it. And, there will be kids who miss class. You want to have it available. So I think that having those kinds of resources, especially if you think you might do that dictatio again in the future, is really nice. It's really easy to do with just Screencastify. There's a Google Chrome extension. You just click it, click start, and it just starts recording everything you do. And when you're done, you click stop. It processes the video and it takes you to their site.
There's
for processing.
Chassis,
Yeah.
Someone asked, did they translate what they heard or did they just write it?
They just write it. For a dictatio, it's just we talk through what it means with them, but it's actually normally used to check their hearing to make sure that they catch like the sounds that we're actually producing in Latin. And also it usually preps them for something we're going to read later in the week. So that dictatio used sentences from a story that I was going to teach the kids in a couple days after I did it. So it was new to them at the time. And then by the time we got to the story, they were like, oh yeah, I recognize that. And so like a huge chunk of the work was already done.
Someone else asked does your slide then show them the Latin after
yeah, that was me just going through an entire slideshow. So if you want to like scrub it, you can actually see like, oh, here's all these different sentences, you know, oh, I went to the sentence. And it just does that all throughout. So basically it's just me talking through a PowerPoint, but you could talk through any PowerPoint. I also pull up PDFs of texts that I'm reading with them. And my big thing with that is that I can actually just do, and like, I would prefer to discuss as much Latin in Latin as possible with my students and all that kind of stuff. You know, in an ideal world, we'd all just be sitting around talking in really simple Latin. But I have kids who are missing class. I have kids whose Zoom goes out. And I have kids who need a little extra help and I'm not physically there to give it. So I also will typically use Screencastify to do like a talk through of any story that I've read with them. So it'll be like, here, let me read the sentence. Here's what this phrase means. And it's got like a little clicker so you can see where you're pointing on a screen. Like if you click, a little circle will appear. So the students can actually see what words you're pointing at. You can be like, oh, you know, can you think of any English words that work with this? That's right, that word. And, you know, you could pause, it's like Blue's Clues, but Latin. You know, you just kind of, you can go through, you can basically present any kind of material in a way that they can access on demand without you repeatedly using something like Screencastify, which I think is really useful.
I was also asking how long your listening videos tend to be, like your dictationes, for example.
It depends. That was for Latin 2, and it was like the first time I'd done it. That one was like 18 minutes long, but I think really that's about as long as I get. I ended up feeling like the sentences were kind of long. So I would say probably 10 to 15, usually. Also, I'm chatty, so I tend to just like have dumb asides and stuff like in everything that I do. So before I go on to these, or no, you know what? I'll do it in order. So this week I realized brilliantly that I could in fact just pretend I was in different locations by using Zoom. So if you have Zoom on your computer, which clearly you do, guess what? You can hit record and you can record videos of yourself and other people in Zoom acting stuff out. So I'm doing this like horror unit because October's coming up in Latin 2, and I've just been experimenting. So yes, I know there's an error with a subjunctive in this video, but Miriam, Patrick, and I had a really good time just like making this video about my character Livia, who we decided had moved into a haunted house and is going to consult her friend about it. So I found just like a bad house and put it as my Zoom background. And we just like made this video, but like we made it just sitting around at home. And so this is only 2 minutes. So I'll let you see this one because it's like, it's short.
Louis nunc in domo nova habitat. Erge, domus est magna, et domi Louia est sola, sed esne Louia revera sola, fortasse umbra in domo habitat.
So I'm talking about a ghost for those of you who
Louia non in umbras credidit ante in villa avunculi titi habitabat, sed nunc nescit nocte est strepitus in domo. Oh. Est strepitus vinculorum. Ehu, sed nemo adest. Lui est anxia, sed dicit cum amica amara. Amara est sapiens et multa scit.
Salve, amica.
Salve, amara. Questionem habeo.
Ha, quid est?
Amara, sunt ne umbrae non certa sum, sed puto
Fortasse sunt umbrae.
This is just normal Zoom
Si
recording.
erat mors crudelis, fortasse umbra est. Quid accidit in villa?
Nescio, erat domus avunculi, titi.
Ooh. Quid egit Titus?
Nescio et fortasse scire nolo.
Consilium capio nocte umbram expecta, et si umbra apparuit, eam sequere. Fortasse umbra te ducit ad corpus, aut ad locum notum.
So I won't make you watch everything, but basically what we did was we had, I mean, if you've read about Pliny's haunted house, like this is kind of setting up, like I'm getting advice from my friend, like wait for a ghost and kind of see what will happen. And so we did a story version of this like in text with the students. And then we're using this video to supplement what they have already learned in class. So, you know, doing it this way, like it looks totally stupid. Like it's like the most low budget thing, but the kids really like it and they think it's really funny. And kids who have had the same teachers over different years, you know, students who had Magister Patrick, you know, watching this video in my class thought that it was really funny to see her again. And I actually just recorded with Rachel Ash today because, you know, those of you who know her, she's also, you know, a teacher at Parkview. She's awesome. And so we recorded a video together. So my students are going to meet all the other Latin 2 teachers throughout the course of my unit because I'm just using them in my videos. But this is 100% recorded in Zoom. I did use an editor to clip out goofs or like things that we didn't want in there. I'm actually going to show y'all how I did that because I feel like that's a nice thing to do. But you know, this is 100% in Zoom, just with the webcam that comes with your computer. And so it is entirely possible, if you're willing to be creative, to just do something in Zoom. Like you don't need a set. You don't need like anything fancy. You can use what you have and a Google search for interesting image backgrounds to create like any setting, anything that your mind can, you know, come up with. And so the thing that's also funny is that like you look at that, it's like, this is so silly, but students totally buy it. You know, I mean, they're used to watching internet videos generally, and they also think it's funny to watch you be funny. And it really seems to work really well. And then there's another thing that you can do, which is just take footage on your smartphone. So I'm going to assume, I'm just going to take a wild guess that everyone in here has a phone with a camera, and I'm about 99% sure that it records video. So you can actually just take a bunch of videos on your phone and do all kinds of stuff. So I also work with Bob Patrick, Dr. Robert Patrick, who started off this series. And earlier this year for Latin 1, I got him to do basically like a Latin Sesame Street thing. So basically anything that you would teach in class, you can also just make into a video. So like you can be creative with Zoom, you can go over a text and something like Screencastify, or you can actually just teach part of a lesson this way. So, you know, for Bob, let me find his. This is like all my listed and unlisted videos in my Latin YouTube channel here. I just keep them all. Oh, come on. Don't you dare. Okay, good. So this is just Bob talking. This is one take.
Nomen mihi est Dr. Patricius. So hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Patrick, and today I want to introduce you to some friends of mine. Now, they happen to be animal friends, and I'll tell you, they're really nervous around human beings until they get to know you. But I have 7, except them, I have 7 friends I want to introduce to you today, and every single one of them appears in an ancient Roman story in Latin. So they are much more comfortable in Latin than they are in English. So if you'll follow me, I'm going to introduce you to my friends, tantum Latine, completely in Latin. So here we go. Discipuli est rana. Est rana. Rana means frog. Est rana. Rana purpurea colore est. Purpurea, purple in color she is. Rana purpurea colore est. Et rana habet. Habet means has. Rana habet Unus, duo, tres flores.
So he just went through all of the animals. And what's been so fun is that, first of all, Bob is adorable, and he could have been like a Mr. Rogers of Latin. Maybe he is. But but also we have been doing like stories about different animals. So he got inspired to write a story about a rana. So we've been going through Aesop's fables and adapting them basically for the kids. So he did the rana. I wrote the story about the asinus, who, you know, like the man, the boy, and the donkey, and they're like trying to ride the donkey different configurations to the market, but nobody's ever happy with anything they do. So they end up carrying the donkey and looking ridiculous. We did a story about a fox last week. And so we've just been using this became the kernel like of a whole set of stories that we decided to tell the kids, things that we wrote for them. And I have really found that cool, you know. It's turned into something that we just used in class one day. It's like 10 minutes, but you know, if you're pausing to make sure your kids are okay, or if you're going to have an activity before or after, then you know, something like this is really useful. And we'll probably use it again in future years because it introduces a bunch of animals that we then told a bunch of stories about this year. So we've like got little base layers of material that we can use again in the future, and it's already just there on film. So if we want to use this again next year, it's like 10 minutes of class is like set, perfect, all done. And so
speaking of which, someone is asking if it's okay if they use this video for their own classes.
This one, I'll ask Bob, but probably. So this one's technically unlisted. Mine, I tend to make public, but I don't think Bob will mind. So if you shoot me an email, it's just elizabeth.davidson@gmail.com. It's like the most difficult email of all time. You know, I'll remember to ask him and see if he thinks it's fine, but probably he will. So the other thing that you can do is with your cell phone, you can record things from your life, which kids also do. And so this is something that I put together from cell phone footage when I was talking about, again, animals and my children. So I'll show you just the start because my cats are so cute, but then I'll skip to what my students really like to see.
Et tres filios habeo est filia mea est feles, nomine Harley. Et filius meus est Cato.
So I talked a lot about eating, and she goes over and steals his food at one point during the video, which is fabulous. So she got into, like, my students were like, oh no, your cat's so mean. She like just goes over and takes his food, which of course allows you to talk about, oh, Cato est tristis, Cato non comedet. And so I use this video to teach, it's called Animalia ludunt et comedunt. So I got my cats to eat, I got them to play. So I just used a teaser toy and filmed them playing and really circled like, oh, Cato ludit. E placet ludere, you know, oh, placet Harley comedere kibum. You know, you could just get food, eat, pleases, and you can get those things in repeatedly throughout the video, but the kids will sit there and watch it because they like animals. They'll like your cats. They'll like, well, the star of the show this time happened to be my pet lizard. I just got a bearded dragon. It's already like, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet. Mookie. I named my lizard Mookius Skywola because he's missing the right middle finger on his little lizard hand. So, but we don't know if it's a Mookius or a Mookia yet because still a baby. But this is like him at half the size he is now. But my students were fascinated.
Mookie est lacerta. Mookie est Draco barbatus. Et insecta valde Mookie placent. Euge insecta. Insecta Mookie placent quod Mookie insecta comedit. Valde placet Mookie comedere insecta. Insecta. Placetne tibi insecta comedere?
To which the answer is, of course, no, Minnie May. But, you know, I actually found that from this video, I discovered that at least one student in every single one of my sections has eaten a bug before. So, so like they see your pets, but they because you're talking about comedere in the context of eating bugs, it grosses them out so bad that they all absolutely remember what comedere means weeks later. They also knew spectot a lot faster than I thought they would, because later in the video, like Mookie's like tilting to look before going in for the kill. And I'm like, Mookie insecta spectot. And they remembered because they connected it to this image of my pet lizard being desperate to eat a bug. And so anything that is in your life that is just kind of, you think would be interesting, like your dog is interesting to your students. Your cat is definitely interesting to your students. If you cook something weird, you could probably make a Caque Mecum like Latin video where you put bizarre foods together and teach kids the foods. I've actually thought about doing this at some point because they would think it's cool. You could probably go to Target and shop for school supplies and film it, and your students would think that that was interesting because you're doing something different to talk at them in class. Like, think about, actually we'll get to this, but think about the things that are on social media. Like, if you really think about it, most of the things that people do are not that interesting inherently, but they can be made interesting. And that is true of language videos as well, I think. So this leads to the question of like, how do you be compelling? I mean, everybody knows that when you try too hard, you inevitably fail. So it's like a really weird line, right? You want to intrigue your students and have them be interested in what you do, but you also don't want to try so hard that they're like not willing to go with you. So I find the most important things are like, pay attention. What do your students like? What do they like? I know that students like animals, so that was a really safe bet. But if there are other things they seem to like, you know, if you can do a sports commentary, they'd probably really like that. Especially if you can, like, I've actually thought, I don't want to go to any football games right now for obvious reasons, even though they're having them. But at some point, I would love to get footage from like one of my students' football games and narrate that, like do like a sportscaster thing or something, because I know that they would watch that. I could probably just get somebody to, that's a good idea. Okay. Anyway, also like little things from real life, you know. I don't know about y'all, but my students always ask me the weirdest questions about my life. Like, what do I eat? Or like, where do I like to shop? Or like, they want to know about your pets or your family. You know, Bob did a really cute slideshow using Screencastify because he didn't want to do a bunch of filming with pictures of his kids growing up, talking about what they like to do and about his family. And we use that to teach a bunch of words. You know, this having images and videos be more part of your repertoire, I think really helps you show that to your kids. But I mean, also, let's get real. People online watch cleaning videos. People like to watch other people clean things. Like, whatever you do, it could be interesting. I also find that keeping things really short is good. So, you know, our students like TikTok. It's like a 30-second deal. You know, we want short. So most of my videos, I made one about Animal Crossing that I'll probably show at some point if we have time. That was longer. It was like 9 minutes because it took forever to get all the screen movement. But, you know, most of my videos are no longer than 5 minutes if they're meant to entertain the kids. I like to keep it really short and then build around it. So it's just like a reading. You can do a pre-activity to prep the vocabulary. You can have them watch it. You can have them do something with it. Then you can have them watch it again. But, you know, much like with a movie talk, if you've ever tried one of those, short is sweet. And, you know, keeping with our times, you know, you shouldn't make anything that's too long. Also, it's taxing on you to edit long videos. And the other thing that I do recommend, even though perhaps this is just, it's wrong for me as a teacher and a scholar, but you should consume at least some social media yourself. I actually really think you should download TikTok and have a good time. Once the algorithm figures out what you like from liking videos, it'll just keep showing you more of what you like. It's a delightful experience. But you know, Instagram is actually really interesting. There's a lot of artistry that goes into an actually really good Instagram photo. It takes a lot more effort, I think, than most people actually realize. Or even on TikTok, some of those videos are very well edited. They're very creative, they're very smart. And, you know, people are putting things out there right now that your students think are entertaining, that you can also find entertaining and perhaps adapt to your purposes depending on who you are and what you like. And you know, I think that that's something that we should be celebrating because there's not a lot to celebrate about our jobs right now. So, you know, I think that, you know, finding the really interesting things, finding the creative projects, finding ways to connect with your students on their own territory, even if you can't actually bond with them in person, is really nice. And it's really made me more interested in making videos this year. Like, I'd always thought about it, but I like it a lot more now, because I feel like I'm making something to send to someone who will respond to it, even if we don't have an in-person relationship yet. And, you know, I've also noticed that because I do these things, my students, like, you know, they'll always think that I'm old and dorky because, one, true, and two, they're students. You know, they want to connect. So my like little chat boxes on my Google Meet and Zoom are pretty lively because I chat in there like while I'm doing stuff. And then before you know it, they're talking to each other, to me, in school appropriate, but like more casual ways. I actually think I hear more from students now because they see me as an internet person who likes the internet like them. And then they'll actually give me a little bit more of themselves through that digital medium, which I really like. So let's get into a little bit of technical stuff. So editing, okay, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it really, really, really helps. If you can learn just the most basic video editing skills, and you can do this by watching YouTube tutorials and experimenting, which is how I did it. I'd never made a video in my life before. I just decided to one day and I just made it happen. And you know, it could be bad. Like those videos I showed, those are not masterpieces of film editing, but it doesn't matter. The point is that you make something that's entertaining to watch and cut out the boring parts, and then you're good. You're good. It doesn't have to be perfect. But in any editing program, there are 3 things that I recommend you be able to do, really only 2. First, learn to use the razor tool. The razor tool is basically just splitting a clip and cutting out or deleting the parts that you don't like. So if you pause awkwardly or you have a blooper, you can just cut it out in video editing. You can have one big long take and only end up keeping the parts you like because you just sliced out the parts that weren't good. And any basic video editor will do this, and it'll be one of the first things that you can do. So they don't all call them the razor tool. That's an Adobe thing. I've been like editing a podcast, and that's what it's called. But if you cut out, like in iMovie, it's called split clip. If you split on either side of the clip and cut that middle clip out, then the boring part disappears and the awkward timing disappears. And that part where you're kind of like scratching your nose or something like disappears. And so, you know, you can just cut things. Editing is magic. The other thing that I highly recommend that you learn to do, which is also not that hard because most editing programs will make this easy for you, is voiceover. Because if you have voiceover, you can just take videos of stuff all day and you don't have to worry about what you actually want to say over it until later. So that Zoom video of me talking about my haunted house, I just took more footage than I actually needed, talked over, and then cut out the extra. So instead of trying to get everything right in one big take or trying to take 1,000 takes, I just took out the stuff that I didn't like and left the stuff that I did and talked over it. There's an extra trick that if you really want to use at some point, it's called cutaways. So if you want to, like, this is kind of the opposite of a voiceover. So like a cutaway is where, like, I'm going to use it in a video that I'm doing with McGeester Ash this week, where she and I are talking to each other and telling a story. I got some clips of a couple of the other teachers doing things, acting things out from the story that I'm going to superimpose over us talking so that the kids will have like a visual understanding of what we're doing. So this can look a little scary, but it's really, really not that bad. It'll take you like a weekend, maybe, or you'll be natural and you'll be really fast. But there are free editing programs on most computers. I use iMovie because I have a Mac. My home computer is Mac. If you have one, congratulations, you have the easiest free movie program. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, those almost certainly came preloaded with a version of iMovie. I'm not as good at using those because I don't do a lot of stuff on mobile devices, but I've absolutely edited a video on my iPhone. It took a little longer than normal to figure out, but I basically just talked, cut out the awkward part, and like posted it. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. If you have Windows Movie Maker, I believe remains free and is very, very easy to use. So I would recommend one of these first 2. I've heard a lot about OpenShot. I've not used it myself. And Miriam Patrick, my colleague, uses VSDC, which she says is difficult to learn at first, but then is really convenient once you figure it out. But these are all free. If you watch a couple of YouTube videos about them and decide which one you want and then download one, I would consider that time well invested. And also, if you learn to use TikTok, this is ridiculous, but you can do a lot of editing stuff in TikTok if you learn how to use it. Your videos will always be vertical, but believe it or not, a lot of our students are editing surprisingly advanced things just inside of that phone app. So yeah.
So there's a question. Have you ever used, it looks like WeVideo? Is that a thing you've heard of?
I have not. I'm an iMovie user and I'm slowly graduating to Adobe Premiere.
That's fair. I want to mention also, someone had asked about this, and I happen to have used the cutting tool in YouTube Studio for these talks. It's really, really easy. YouTube has a built-in cutting tool. So there's that, FYI.
Yes. But yeah, if the only thing you ever learn how to use in an editing program is the cutting tool, honestly, you're in good shape, because most of editing is just cutting out stuff you don't want. You don't need to have special effects and you don't need to have special transitions. You can just do jump cuts from thing to thing. like most of these. So I'm actually going to show y'all like my iMovie of that Zoom movie that I made, just because I feel like you should be able to illustrate the things that you're talking about. So this is what this looks like. So this is just like a bunch of media. Don't ignore it. Do not panic. This looks horrible if you've never seen a video editor before. All this is I took the video clips that I made in Zoom. As you can see down here, I should have just cut the audio off. This blue blank part is that that's like audio that I didn't cut off because I didn't talk while I was filming those chunks of that video. So this is that haunted house video I showed like a few minutes ago. So basically what I did was I've cut out some of the original footage that I had, and this is me talking over it. So in iMovie, there's like a little microphone right here, and you can actually click record. Like you put your little cursor where you want to start recording, you hit it, and it'll let you record over whatever footage you put. And you can just delete it and try again until you like it. So, I mean, I like the voiceover tool a lot because that way I can just put, like, I just took cute videos of my lizard, threw them in here and talked over them, and ta-da, I had a lesson plan. And so, you know, you can do a lot with that. And then this is just straight Zoom conversation. I put that sound. So I had the Strepitus vinculorum. I don't have any chains in my house. I have this coin jar. I shook it and I made like a groaning sound over it using voiceover. And that was my special effect haunted house sound. Amazing. So like, if you're willing, I mean, the kids don't know, they don't see that I was just shaking my loose change. They could think it's a chain for all I know. So, you know, nothing is real. Nothing is real in a video. This isn't real. This is a photography background. So, you know, whatever you have around to use, you know, you can use it. So as you can see, here's where I didn't like stuff, or we had a weird pause. So I just clicked it. So you can actually see in my video stream down here, like where I cut things that I didn't like. And I didn't have to cut too much actually, because it was pretty smooth. But yeah, I mean, you can really do an amazing amount of stuff with a cutting tool and a voiceover. That's all you actually need. Whatever other special things they're showing you, like up here, it's like, ooh, do I want to color correct? No. Do I want to, I mean, you might want to reduce your background noise. That's a reasonable thing to want to do. But like, if you don't know how to do that, forget it. Don't worry about it. Your kids don't expect good quality from you. They just want to be entertained for a few minutes. You know, all the fancy stuff you can skip until you're ready. Just learn how to use a cut and maybe a voiceover, and you'll be amazed at like what you can actually do with that. It's stunning. So if you decide that you want to make more videos, the other things that I will recommend, because nobody ever told me any of this, and so I feel like if you're going to make videos for things, they might as well look as decent as possible. So looking good on camera. I do not look great on camera. I'm not saying that I'm Angelina Jolie here, but there's two things to consider when you are making a video that will just make your experience better. The first is lighting. So if you have nothing else, you want to have natural light. Windows are good. They light you up well and they make you look nice. If you're filming at night, or like I'm in here, you want what's called either a ring light. So all those circle lights with like the camera in the middle that your students might have seen, or you see people using online to light their faces. It's called a ring light. You can get one on Amazon. I think the Amazon Basics one is like $30. I think they go cheaper. If you have an umbrella light kit, they do cost a bit more, but I'm actually using one right now. So ta-da, that's my umbrella light, just the corner. But I'm just gonna show you the difference. This will look bad on YouTube, but I'm willing to do this for you. I'll be right back. All right, so this is just my normal overhead light in my office. I'm sure you can see the difference. So you can see there are a ton of shadows all over my face and I just look worse, probably more like reality. But, you know, the lighting is not ideal and nothing looks as good. So what you do is you cut out that overhead light that casts those shadows down on your face, and you can get a cheap umbrella light that makes you look more photogenic. So I'll be right back. So something as simple as paying attention to the lighting will make you feel better when you look at footage of your videos, because if you are even remotely vain, which we all are, it is just better to do yourself that favor. But also, you know, it makes things just look more professional and better without you actually having to change anything else that you do, which I think is convenient. The other thing to think about always, 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 especially since I teach a language, is sound. You want to pay attention to background noise. So if you're going to make a video of some kind, especially if you're going to do a voiceover, you want to stay away from your refrigerator. If the AC is running, you might want to think about sweating it out and turning it off, because it will go in the background of your video and it makes your audio sound worse. Basically anything that's in the background that's like white noise will be irritating later. And there are ways to reduce background noise, but like, one, that's an editing trick I don't think that you need to worry about right now, because I've already told you to download an editor. And like students, we like to start slow, right? Like that would be ridiculous. But also having good audio to start with means less work later and less freak out later. So you just want it to be nice the first time. So the other thing that I recommend if you want to do this, also if you're talking to your kids on Zoom all day, this is not a bad thing to have, is a cheap microphone. So cheap in microphone land is variable. My microphones probably cost more than the average person is willing to pay, but that's because I make videos. So the one thing I would recommend though is getting a cheap mic. So this is a basic blue snowball microphone that's very good for things like podcasts. And I know a lot of teachers have been picking these up to just use to kind of, because they point at you and they can sit on your desk, they can kind of cut out a lot of the humming and air that comes through your classroom. Because I don't know about y'all, but my classroom white noise is terrible. But if you want to record something for a video that has less interference, even a really simple microphone can do a lot for you, which I personally think is really good. I use a more upgraded version of this microphone. And I just bought a toy for myself. I bought a microphone that plugs into my phone. And I've been experimenting with it. It was really cool. I'm really enjoying it. But, if you get really into the techie stuff, it's actually a lot of fun. But, you don't have to buy anything. But if you're going to buy something, I recommend that you get a microphone or a light. Those are the two things I would get. Hang on. I've accidentally gone through here. Here we go.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. Are you using a special mic currently?
Yeah, this is a Blue Yeti. I use it for podcasting normally, and I just got it plugged in my computer. Oh. And it accidentally unplugged. There we go. I messed with it and I got angry. But it just sits on a stand. But yeah, I usually use like a decent lights and the best mic that I have to hand, because I think that helps even a little bit. Anything that kind of makes you clearer, especially because I'm also now teaching wearing a mask, because I have students in my room and online at the same time. So anything that I can do to bump the quality of what I'm sending through the internet that everyone else is using while there are also kids in the room, I'm going to go for personally right now. The other thing that you could do is, if you play a lot of video games, I don't know if that's this crowd. I play a lot of video games. You can get a capture card. I don't recommend this for people who have not started, but it's an option someday. I got this capture card last year that I've been really getting a kick out of. It's currently out of stock, but you can get it on like Best Buy right now. This is a PC-free capture card. So basically I can just run my computer's, my TV and my gaming console's like cords through it, and it'll just interrupt the flow of signal from my Nintendo Switch to my TV and record that footage that comes through. So one of the videos I made for kids this year was this ridiculous Animal Crossing
Dr.
video.
D est
Because they're all playing Animal Crossing. Like, they played this all quarantine, and so did I. So I went to visit.
Dr. D est laeta quod it ad amicam. Amica est magistra Patrick.
So Miriam Patrick also has Animal Crossing. So I took an airplane in this game
Amicae
to her island.
Ad amiculam.
I talked a lot about
Assisi.
insulae and amicae so that my students would absorb the word. But then I flew to her island, where we went
Assisi.
walking through her flowers,
Cum amica
swimming in her ocean.
magistra Patrick.
And so we got it,
Oge.
ambulat, curit, and a bunch of emotions in, because we like hung out on her island together. And the best part was that my students knew exactly what that was.
Nunc Dr. D est in insula Assisi. Amica magistra Patrick ad est. Oge. Magistra Patrick et Dr. D Leitai sunt.
So you better believe that our students learn these words because they knew the Animal Crossing reactions. And then just as like a weird personal project for me, I've also done a complete playthrough of this game called the Untitled Goose Game on the Switch, where you are a goose and you just go harass people. And then I voice that over in Latin. So if you want to entertain yourselves, that would be link number 2. But basically, there's just a lot of possibility out there for playing games, for, you know, making cool videos, for doing things with your language that also connect to your students. And I feel like now is like the best time to experiment with that because we're reaching hard for ways to engage with our students during the hardest conditions under which that we've ever had to do that. So, you know, if you can kind of meet them on their playing field and make things for them to watch, it's convenient because it helps connect with them primarily, but it also gives you something to put online for later. It gives you something to store for a future date. It gives you a sub plan to leave behind on Google Classroom. You know, there are a number of different ways that things like this, once you've made them, can be used down the line. Also, if you want to store things, I put everything on YouTube, but if you don't want the whole world to see it, just make it an unlisted video and people can't search it. They can only really get there if they have the link. So you don't have to give everything that you make to the whole world. You can put some privacy settings on it. I try to make as many of my videos public as possible, just in case somebody else needs something to do. So my email is just elizabeth.davidson@gmail.com. Yes, I did get a beta invite back in high school. I've had the same email for like 15 years or longer. Social media, my Twitter is @LatrinaSecreta. My Insta is in fact @TheSecretToilet. I don't do much of it. That's what I call my YouTube channel. If you know about a special place in Naples that's been mistranslated, you know exactly what that is, but our kids don't. And if you want to find me for not Latin things, my YouTube channel that I'm on all the time is Beyond Solitaire. That's where I make all my board game videos, and it's where I started doing all this. So, you know, if you want to just see a dumb hobby turn into something I now use in my classroom, there you go. Let me look in the chat, see if there's any questions. Are there any questions? I'm like trying to open this chat here.
Oh yeah, I posted a bunch of stuff. So FYI for everybody, I linked in Liz's slides as well as the YouTube channel where the webinars that we've had so far have been posted, as well as this one after we're done, and the registration link for next week's webinar as well. Are there other questions for Liz though about any of this stuff that we just learned about? Anybody have anything they want to know more about?
Also, if you try something and you get stuck, if it's on an Apple, I can probably help you. If it's not, I could probably help you find a YouTube video about it because that's how I learn everything.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody seems to be just like really enthusiastically excited. So it sounds like you gave some good tips and people feel empowered.
Yeah, I hope so. The only thing that's stopping you from making all the videos is to just try it once. You learn something every time you do it, and then you get better, and then you start having ideas based on the one that you made before. So like, just like you encourage your students to try things, you know, it doesn't hurt us to try things either. And it's okay to go slow and go at your own pace, and it's okay for the video to be bad. One other thing I do want to point out is that I make Latin mistakes in my videos too, because I'm just talking most of the time. Or, you know, you just make mistakes in editing, or you don't hear yourself, or you misspeak. I would recommend not letting yourself worry about that. One, the kids don't know any better. And two, you're a professional. No one's going to come through and grade you. They can't take away your degree or give you an F because you said Walt instead of Wellet. And so, you know, definitely make sure that you are not judging yourself too hard as you do this. Have fun, because like your kids will know that part and they'll bond with that part better than if you're perfect.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.